Okay. Good afternoon. And welcome to everyone who's joining us on the internet. We've been talking for the last few weeks about the two operating systems. The one being the ego's operating system, and the other being the Holy Spirit's operating system. And that waking up is a matter of shifting from the ego's operating system to the Holy Spirit's operating system. Remembering that the Holy Spirit is nothing more than your right mind. Because of the general familiarity with computers and computer systems and the fact that they're called operating systems, it's possible for you to think that the two operating systems are like two different objects. And I want to make a subtle distinction here. The ego's operating system, in replacing the Holy Spirit's operating system, did not constitute the Holy Spirit's operating system to be removed from you, or to be like removed from the computer. The ego's operating system is overlaid upon the Holy Spirit's operating system. It's rather like you're putting on a pair of colored glasses, which, let us say they're red colored glasses. It causes an overlay of red to be placed between you and everything you're observing. So that everything you see is colored red. It didn't make everything you see change, but it made the way you perceive it change. The ego's operating system is a way of thinking which you have overlaid over the direct, clear experience of reality. Now, in shifting from one operating system to the other, you abandon the ego's operating system, so that the overlay fades, allowing the underlying eternal operating system, that which is nothing more than your right mind, to be experienced by you without any distractions. And the new operating system becomes obviously yours, instead of something that has been obscured and put into the background by an overlay of thoughts, ideas, mutually agreed upon definitions that are at odds with reality. This is important. Now, paramount subject at the moment happens to be guilt. And we've discussed the fact that you use guilt not only to distract yourself from the other operating system, the new operating system, the only real operating system, but you use it to keep your brothers and sisters unconscious of it as well. And you use it by continually finding ways to make your brother say, ouch. And in the process of making your brother say, ouch, you suggest that it is your brother's perception that needs to be changed. So not only have you implied guilt, you have implied that the guilt has been brought into play entirely by the one you made feel guilty. And thus your part in the introduction of guilt becomes overlooked. Now, there are many ways you do this to each other. And one of the most subtle and therefore most difficult to address forms of it is criticism. How many of you have noticed someone of the female persuasion who has started going through menopause and apparently become cranky and critical? And you say, you notice it, of course, and you say, oh, well, she's going through menopause. And what you're saying is, in effect, I don't have to honor the criticism. I don't have to take it personally. I understand it because, quote, it's a stage she's going through, unquote. And in actuality, that is a kindness. But you recognize there the fact that the criticism is not appropriate. And that's the key point. In other cases, you may notice that somebody is apparently getting older, and in their old age they are becoming critical. And you recognize that it's not appropriate, you don't like it, but you say, well, that's old age for you. What I'm trying to point out is that when you see it in others, you recognize that it is inappropriate. But when you engage in it, you seldom notice that you're doing it. And yet, little criticisms constitute niggling cuts, if you will, against the integrity of the person being criticized. And you need to become alert to when you're practicing criticism, even in the guise of jokes. You need to become alert because you are allowing yourself to practice hate, because the act of criticism is undercutting and undermining of another's peace. You need to recognize when you're doing it so that you can bite your tongue and not embody hate, not give it voice in the world, and then correct yourself. Make another choice so that what comes out of your mouth expresses love and support and encouragement. And that which substantiates the excellence in your brother. Why? Because when you are in the act of instilling guilt, you are distancing yourself from that place of excellence in you, and you are causing the one being made to feel guilty to automatically become defensive and retaliatory, and thus teach the necessity of not being unconditional. The necessity of not being trusting. The necessity of not being open and undefended against the influx of God's point of view, so that it might be expressed and embodied in the world. Love one another. See to it that in everything you do, it causes your brother to feel safe or your sister to feel safe enough to let down his or her defenses, so that the overlay of the ego's operating system may fade and in its absence disclose the underlying eternal operating system of the Holy Spirit, which is the presence of God in each one of you. I encourage you during this coming week and beyond that, but I encourage you during this, all of you during this coming week, to monitor your thoughts and your expressions, to see whether or not what you're saying or what you're about to say is going to be an invitation to your brother or sister to feel guilty and to feel the need for defense, so that you don't become the focal point for more firmly establishing the ego's operating system. Okay. Reading. Guilt feelings are the preservers of time. And I'm adding, and therefore the obscurers of eternity. They, guilt feelings, induce fears of future retaliation or abandonment, and thus ensure that the future will remain like the past. You see, guilt feelings bring your imagination into play because the future can only be imagined. And so when you attempt to cause another to feel guilty, you cause the imagination of another to come into play. And you know they're going to do this, which is why you employ guilt. Because you want them to become fearful of what you will do as a consequence of their not buckling under to your wish to have them see things your way and not abandon the mutually agreed upon definitions. Continuing, this, meaning the ensuring that the future will remain like the past, is the ego's continuity and gives it a false sense of security through the belief that you cannot escape from it. But you can and you must. God offers you the continuity of eternity in exchange. In exchange for what? In exchange for the abandonment of guilt, but more basically, in exchange for your abandoning the ego's operating system and choosing instead, in all cases, to come from the place of excellence in you, which is the Holy Spirit. Continuing, when you choose to make this exchange, you will simultaneously exchange guilt for joy, viciousness for love, and pain for peace. My role is only to unchain your will and make it free. Your ego cannot accept this freedom and will oppose your free decision at every possible moment and in every possible way. And as its maker, you recognize what it can do because you gave it the power to do it. You see, when you're in the ego operating system, you are conditioned. You're nothing but a bunch of conditioned responses. You are conditioned to keep everybody else conditioned. And you are also conditioned to keep yourself conditioned. Oh, when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, my mother instilled in me conscience. And I learned it. And I know better than to go against what I was taught. It has become my code of conduct. And because she used guilt and shame as the justification for my adopting it so sincerely, I must do the same with everyone else, because that's the way it works. And so if you, through truly divine inspiration, find yourself led to behave in a way that occurs outside of your conditioned conscience, you feel guilty and you stop yourself immediately. And so guilt keeps you in line, and you use guilt to keep everyone else in line. And everyone else uses guilt to keep you in mind. And it's a continuing downward spiral of ignorance. And you need to realize that this is happening so that you can make a different choice. And so that you can find the use of guilt to be repulsive, something you do not want to utilize or engage in or be controlled by. Because as long as you, with your mind, keep yourself bound to ignorance, and as long as you use that to keep others bound to ignorance, and as long as everyone else is using it to keep you bound to ignorance, well, it's obvious that you're like a butterfly caught and pinned in a display case, absolutely kept from expressing your function of freedom and beauty and life. Continuing. The mind does indeed know its power, because the mind does indeed know God. Remember the kingdom always. You could say, do not forget there is another operating system. Remember that the only thing you are confronted by is reality, the kingdom of heaven. Continuing, and remember that you who are part of the kingdom cannot be lost. The mind that was in me is in you. For God creates with perfect fairness. Let the Holy Spirit, your right mind, remind you always of His, God's fairness. And let me teach you how to share it with your brothers. How else can the chance to claim it for yourself be given you? You see, there's that process again. You must invite the consciousness of love in so that it can be extended to your brother, so that you may have it for yourself because you have embodied it. Again, how else can the chance to claim it for yourself be given you? What you do not understand is that the two voices speak for different interpretations of the same thing simultaneously, or almost simultaneously, for the ego always speaks first. That's because it's a defense system, and it's always going to present the defense against the clear perception of truth before you have the chance to express the truth, because it must defend its existence. Now let's go back, because this is important. What you do not understand is that the two voices speak for different interpretations of the same thing. I've said over and over again that the only thing you're confronted by is reality. At this very moment, as you sit in your homes, or as each of you sits here in this room, with all of the objects in the room, the only thing confronting you and looking like objects is the kingdom of heaven. It's only the kingdom of heaven that the ego can have an interpretation of. It's only the kingdom of heaven that you can have mutually agreed upon definitions about. There's nothing else available for you to have a single thought about. So the ego and the Holy Spirit speak of the same thing. The only thing is that the Holy Spirit speaks of it truly and reveals it truly, and the ego definitions lie about it. And then you become engaged in a lifelong goal of trying to confirm the lie as the truth. And the strife between you and your brother and sister is made up of nothing more than the constant battle of trying to establish the lie as truth. Continuing, alternate interpretations were unnecessary until the first one was made. And speaking itself was unnecessary before the ego was made. Why was speaking unnecessary? Because you all knew the truth. And you all knew that each other knew it as a direct, unrestricted experience of what each other was knowing. And that's what awaits you at this moment as you abandon the overlay of the ego's operating system. Continuing, the ego speaks in judgment. Judgment, I'm interjecting this here, judgment spoken is always a form of criticism. And is therefore always an attempt to instill guilt so as to cause defense, which constitutes a tightening up, which causes your body to become more dense, your body of light, and therefore dark. And as a result, the illumination of your being is no longer seen, and it's easy to forget that you are the light, that you are the light of living love, that you are radiant being. And then it's very easy for you to say that everything is matter, because you cannot see the light of it, in it. Continuing. The ego speaks in judgment, and the Holy Spirit reverses its decisions. Let's just be with that for a moment. The ego speaks in judgment, and the Holy Spirit reverses its decisions, much as the Supreme Court has the power to reverse the lower court's decisions about the laws of this world. The ego's decisions are always wrong because they are based on a complete fallacy, which they were made to uphold.